When I first read Swimfan, I was scared, actually. And I end up despising him, and I have to remind myself he's just a talented actor.
For years, Swimfan left audiences breathless. But behind Erika Christensen's chilling performance was a secret that almost no one saw coming. What if the role that made her famous wasn't the one she was supposed to play? What if Erika had to fight behind the scenes to reshape her image and risk everything to do it? Now, decades later, she's breaking her silence, and what she reveals changes everything you thought you knew about the film. The revelation, what most fans never figured out. In later interviews, Erika revealed that she had to push hard behind the scenes to convince the team that she could handle such a disturbing role. There were doubts, both within the production and in her own mind, about whether she could carry a thriller with this much psychological weight. But she believed in her own range. She believed Madison wasn't just a villain, but a layered, deeply troubled person. And Erika was determined to show that complexity. What fans also didn't realize was the toll the film took on her, both physically and mentally. Beyond the now famous pool sequence, the entire shoot was emotionally demanding. Scenes that involved stalking, confrontation, and manipulation required Erika to dig deep into unsettling emotions. She spoke of intense moments on set, where the psychological darkness of the character stayed with her long after the cameras stopped rolling. One particular sequence, where Madison lashes out in a parking garage, left her physically drained for days. Though the movie's tone is slick and sharp, the atmosphere behind the camera was much heavier. Erika mentioned in a podcast appearance years later that she would often go home from set with headaches and emotional fatigue, especially after scenes that involved confrontation or emotional outbursts. The production timeline was tight, and the emotional demands were high. She kept her struggles private, choosing professionalism over vulnerability. But those quiet battles shaped every frame of her performance. There was another surprising element she later revealed. The shooting of some intimate scenes was more physically complicated than audiences ever imagined. She described moments during filming when she had to pause, recalibrate, and even renegotiate how certain scenes were being portrayed. These were not easy conversations, especially for a young actress trying to assert her vision. But Erika stood firm. Her bravery wasn't just in front of the camera, it was in the choices she made to protect her integrity while still delivering the emotional impact the story demanded. This part of her journey remained hidden from audiences for years. To most fans, Erika's portrayal of Madison seemed effortless, perhaps even second nature. But it was anything but. What viewers saw was the result of fierce commitment, creative control, and emotional risk-taking. She didn't just play Madison, she built her from the inside out, against the grain of what the industry expected. That courage paid off. The film may have been labeled a teen thriller, but Erika's performance gave it unexpected gravity. She transformed a potentially one-dimensional stalker into a haunting portrait of desperation and obsession. And the fact that she chose this path herself made it all the more powerful. Audiences may not have known the full truth back then, but looking back, the fingerprints of Erika's personal bravery are everywhere in Swimfan. Her decision to take on the role, to reshape it, and to carry the emotional weight with authenticity is what elevated the film from a standard thriller to a cult classic. Swimfan's release and Erika's rise. In 2002, a psychological thriller with teenage angst, obsession, and danger exploded onto the big screen. Swimfan, a suspenseful dive into the darker side of high school romance, hit theaters and quickly made a splash. Despite its relatively modest budget and cast of rising young stars, the film opened at #1 at the box office, a rare feat for a genre picture of its kind. It captivated young audiences with its fast-paced tension and provocative storyline, earning the label of a teen fatal attraction. The parallels were impossible to ignore. Just as Glenn Close's character in Fatal Attraction shocked audiences in the 1980s, Swimfan's Madison Bell delivered a similarly chilling performance that left a lasting impression. The early 2000s were a time when teen thrillers were evolving. Audiences had already seen the glossy slasher fare of Scream and the romantic drama of Cruel Intentions. But Swimfan offered something slightly different. It tapped into the fear of the obsessive girlfriend, wrapped in a high school setting, complete with locker room secrets, swimming pool seductions, and deadly consequences. This blend of youthful vulnerability and calculated menace struck a nerve with viewers. At the center of it all was a young actress who took a massive leap from award-winning drama to seductive thriller, Erika Christensen. Before Swimfan, Erika Christensen had already proven her acting chops in Steven Soderbergh's Oscar-winning drama Traffic. Released in 2000, Traffic showcased her as Caroline Wakefield, the harmful, substance-addicted daughter of a conservative judge played by Michael Douglas. Her performance was raw, emotionally charged, and critically acclaimed. She didn't just hold her own among Hollywood veterans. She stood out. For many, it was the first glimpse of an actress who could deliver intense performances with heartbreaking realism. It was clear that Erika wasn't just another pretty face in the crowd of emerging young talent. She had depth. She had grit. Traffic was a breakout moment. Not only did the film win 4 Academy Awards, including Best Director for Soderbergh and Best Supporting Actor for Benicio del Toro, but it also gave Erika Christensen her first major industry recognition. She was just 18 when the film was released, yet she tackled a heavy and emotionally complex role with maturity far beyond her years. That performance opened doors. Hollywood took notice. But instead of staying strictly on the path of heavy dramas, Erika made an unexpected pivot. That pivot led her to Swimfan. It was a bold move. While some young actors might shy away from being typecast or taking on sexually charged roles early in their careers, Erika embraced the challenge. Swimfan wasn't just another teen flick. It was an opportunity for her to show range and to lead a film on her own terms. It required her to tap into something darker, more manipulative, and psychologically intense. And Erika was ready. Though critics were divided on the film itself, most agreed that Christensen's performance stood out. As Madison Bell, she was both alluring and terrifying, a perfect storm of charm and chaos. It was a role that demanded confidence, control, and vulnerability, all layered beneath the surface of a high school senior's sweet exterior. The film may have received mixed reviews, but her presence was undeniable. Fans left theaters chilled by her performance and curious about the young actress who made such a disturbed character feel so frighteningly real. Erika Christensen had gone from playing a troubled teen in Traffic to embodying a dangerous femme fatale in Swimfan. It was more than just a career move. It was a transformation. And yet, what most people didn't know at the time was that Erika had actually been offered a completely different part in Swimfan. A role that didn't involve obsession, seduction, or violence. But she said no. She wanted something else. She wanted something darker, something riskier. But what kind of girl would choose to play Madison Bell? You're going to discover the surprising reason why Erika turned down the safe role and how her bold decision changed everything. The casting curveball. When the script for Swimfan made its way to Erika Christensen, it seemed like a natural next step for a young actress fresh off an award-winning drama. She was gaining momentum in Hollywood after her emotional and gripping role in Traffic, And now producers were eager to cast her in something that would appeal to a younger, mainstream audience. The character they had in mind for her was Amy Miller, the kind, sweet-natured girlfriend of the film's male lead. Amy was the good girl of the story, someone the audience would root for and sympathize with. It was a safe role, a predictable one, and Erika was expected to play it. But the producers didn't anticipate what would happen next. Erika read the script carefully. Instead of seeing herself in Amy's soft-spoken lines and supportive nature, she found her attention drifting to another character, Madison Bell, the transfer student, the mysterious girl with an intense stare and a dark obsession, the girl who slowly unravels into something dangerous, something unhinged. Most actors might have avoided a character like Madison. She was the villain. She was unpredictable. But to Erika, she was fascinating. Despite the film's creators initially envisioning Erika as Amy, she pushed back. She told them she was not interested in the nice girl. She wanted Madison. She saw something in the character that pulled her in. Madison was more than just a typical antagonist. She was layered, emotionally complicated, and deeply broken. It was a role that would demand psychological depth and emotional control. Erika wanted that challenge. According to interviews, Erika remembered the producers being surprised by her choice. It wasn't common for young actresses to ask for the darker role, especially in a film marketed toward teen audiences. Many actors were worried about image or being typecast. But Erika was determined to take the road less traveled. She was clear and confident in her request. She didn't want to play it safe. This decision changed everything. Casting directors re-evaluated the film's structure, and eventually, Erika got what she wanted. She was cast as Madison Bell, and the role of Amy Miller went to another actress. The choice to let Erika play Madison wasn't just a shift in casting, it altered the tone of the entire film. With Erika in the role, Madison became more believable. Her obsession didn't feel exaggerated or cartoonish. It felt personal, real, unsettling in a way that stayed with audiences long after the credits rolled. It's not often that an actress takes this kind of control over her trajectory so early in her career. But Erika had a vision. She didn't just want to entertain, she wanted to explore the darker corners of human behavior. And Madison gave her that opportunity. There was something in that character that connected with her. Something that made Erika believe she could step into Madison's shoes and bring her to life in a way no one else could. But what was it that made Erika so drawn to Madison? Why did this role speak to her in a way that the more traditional, sympathetic role didn't? Was it just about playing against type, or was there something deeper behind her decision? Let's uncover the personal reasons Erika felt connected to Madison, and why she believed the role was meant for her all along. Why Madison felt right. When Erika Christensen chose to play Madison Bell in Swimfan, she wasn't chasing shock value or trying to rebrand herself. She was pursuing something deeper, something that resonated with her instincts as an actress. Madison wasn't just another high school antagonist. She was a storm of charm, obsession, vulnerability, and rage, contained in the frame of a girl who seemed, at first glance, completely normal. For Erika, this was a rare opportunity to break away from the polished, cute roles she had been offered before and embrace a character that pushed boundaries. Following her emotionally charged performance in Traffic, where she played a teenager caught in the spiral of harmful substance addiction, Erika was already familiar with intense material. But Traffic had placed her in the role of a victim, someone who was swept up by forces bigger than herself. Madison, by contrast, was the force. She was the one driving the chaos, manipulating the story, and leaving a path of destruction behind her. It was a complete reversal from the vulnerability of her earlier role, and that was exactly what drew Erika in. In interviews, Erika described Madison as a character that's far off into the extreme. It was a phrase that captured what made the role so appealing. Madison wasn't one note. Beneath her disturbing actions was a complex, emotional undercurrent. She was seductive, but wounded, calculated, yet impulsive. She offered Erika the chance to explore a psychological landscape that many young actresses never get to touch early in their careers. Instead of reacting to a situation, Madison created the situation, and that creative control gave Erika room to experiment with her craft. The timing was just right. Coming off Traffic, Erika was seen as a serious actress with dramatic potential. But in Hollywood, even that kind of success can lead to typecasting. There was a risk that she would be confined to playing emotionally distressed but passive characters. Choosing Madison was a conscious pivot. It wasn't just a role. It was a statement. It said she could handle danger, mystery, and seduction without falling into stereotype. It proved she wasn't afraid to take risks. She once described Madison as on an actor's wish list. This wasn't just flattery toward the script. It reflected her deep appreciation for roles that challenge perception. Madison allowed Erika to perform on multiple levels at once. In some scenes, she had to appear sweet and inviting. In others, she had to be completely unhinged, yet never lose the thread of realism. That kind of duality is rare in teen thrillers. Most antagonists are written to be loud and over the top. Madison, by contrast, was subtle. Her madness didn't explode all at once. It simmered. It crept in. What made Erika's performance even more powerful was her ability to humanize Madison. Even when the character did something terrifying, there was still a trace of sadness, a glimmer of loneliness beneath the surface. That emotional layering helped audiences connect with the character in a strange, uncomfortable way. Madison wasn't just evil. She was broken. And Erika wanted to show all of it. Erika's connection to the character went beyond professional curiosity. There was something about Madison's contradictions that intrigued her. The way she could switch from warm to cold, from vulnerable to vicious. That unpredictability gave the performance its edge. Erika knew she could do more than just act the part. She could be Madison, in all her chaotic beauty and pain. It was a bold choice, and one that defined her presence in the film. Taking on Madison Bell was a decision that would alter Erika's image and expand her range as a performer. But the moment that tested her most wasn't about delivering lines or exploring backstory. It came when the script called for something physical, raw, and emotionally intense, something far outside her comfort zone. Now let's tell you about behind-the-scenes truth about the film's most intimate scene, and how Erika handled one of the most vulnerable moments of her career. A memory of nervous beginnings. Although Erika had already shown impressive maturity in her performance in Traffic, the pool scene in Swimfan brought a different kind of pressure. It was not about addiction, pain, or family conflict. This time, it was about control, seduction, and power. Madison Bell wasn't a girl in crisis. She was a young woman with a clear and dangerous agenda. And this pool encounter was her way of making that agenda real. Erika later admitted that she felt extremely nervous before shooting the scene. It wasn't just the intimacy of the moment or the exposure involved. It was also the responsibility of carrying that intensity with authenticity. The scene was more than just a romantic encounter. It marked the beginning of a downward spiral for the male lead and a transformation for Madison from mysterious newcomer to dangerous obsession. Erika understood the weight of the moment and felt immense pressure to deliver the right emotional tone. In an attempt to break the tension and lighten the atmosphere, Erika tried to add some humor to the situation. She decided to play Marvin Gaye's classic "Let's Get It On" during the shoot, hoping the familiar music would create a more relaxed vibe. Unfortunately, the speakers didn't cooperate, and the song played too softly to have any real effect. Instead of easing her nerves, the quiet hum of the tune only made things slightly more awkward, turning the moment into a private joke rather than a helpful distraction. Despite the early jitters, Erika remained professional. She knew she had to stay focused and committed, especially since this scene had been scheduled near the beginning of the film's production. The decision to shoot such a delicate moment early was intentional. It allowed the cast and crew to address it while everyone was still fully alert and respectful of each other's boundaries. That scheduling choice also helped set the tone for how seriously the production would handle intimacy and trust on set. The actual filming of the scene took place over the course of a single day. Erika remembered how methodical the process was. Each angle, each movement, each look carefully planned and rehearsed. The pool itself presented technical challenges. Lighting, camera placement, and water clarity all had to be perfect. But beyond the technical elements, the emotional control required of Erika was immense. She had to balance Madison's outward confidence with an inner intensity that suggested obsession, all while moving through the water and interacting closely with her scene partner. During post-production, Erika recalled something very specific. There had been additional close-up shots recorded during the scene, ones that emphasized physical proximity and emotional heat. However, when she viewed them, she felt that they crossed a line, not inappropriately, but in terms of the vulnerability they revealed. She approached the director and expressed her discomfort with how intimate some of those angles felt. To her relief, the director was supportive and understanding. He agreed to remove those particular shots and adjusted the final edit to focus more on the emotional tone rather than overt sensuality. This experience stayed with Erika. It reminded her of the importance of communication and boundaries on a film set, especially when dealing with scenes that expose an actor physically or emotionally. It also marked one of the first times she exercised real agency in shaping how a scene would appear on screen. That kind of confidence and trust is not easily earned, but in this case, it elevated her role and made the final product stronger. While the pool scene demanded a great deal from Erika, it was not the only moment in Swimfan where she had to channel raw intensity. Another scene loomed, one that tested her ability to balance innocence and danger in a terrifying confrontation that would leave audiences holding their breath. Little did she know that single day in the pool would do more than test her nerves. It would forever change how Hollywood and fans saw her. Typecast as the bad girl. When Swimfan hit theaters, Erika Christensen experienced something she hadn't quite prepared for. The reaction from fans and critics wasn't just focused on the film itself. It was laser-focused on her. She had delivered a chilling performance as Madison Belle, the obsessive new girl with a haunting charm. But as the film's success spread, so did a certain perception of Erika. People no longer saw her as the sweet, supportive daughter from Traffic or the girl next door from earlier projects. Overnight, she was being greeted with a very different nickname: the bad girl. This wasn't just an occasional comment or two from fans. It became a consistent label. Audiences were shocked and fascinated by her shift in tone. In interviews, she found herself constantly being asked how she managed to play such a dark and manipulative character. At public events, people referenced Madison more than they mentioned Erika's real name. Strangers approached her with cautious curiosity, unsure if she was more like the characters she played than they had previously believed. The impact was swift and powerful. The experience was disorienting at first, Erika had stepped into the role of Madison Bell because she wanted to explore something deeper and more emotionally charged. She had seen a challenge in playing someone so unpredictable and emotionally volatile. What she hadn't fully anticipated was how easily people would blur the lines between the character and the actress. It became a moment of career transformation, one that was both thrilling and slightly unsettling. Still, Erika took it in stride. She never publicly distanced herself from the film or the character. Instead, she leaned into the attention with confidence. In her interviews, she emphasized the power of playing flawed people, the importance of exploring human behavior, and how much she had grown through the process. In time, her clarity began to reshape the conversation around the movie. People began to move beyond simply labeling her as a bad girl, and started appreciating her as a performer, unafraid of complicated material. What also helped soften the perception over time was the gradual shift in how Swimfan itself was seen. Upon release, some critics had dismissed it as another teen thriller riding the wave of early 2000s suspense dramas. But a new generation of viewers began to rediscover it on streaming platforms and late-night reruns. They saw something fresh in it, something that stood apart from the typical high school romances of that era. It had edge, it had danger, and at the center of it all was Erika's haunting performance. Fans who once saw Madison as just another crazy girl began to appreciate the layers within the character. They saw her as vulnerable and wounded, not just threatening. And in turn, Erika's portrayal began to be praised for its nuance. Her early courage to take on such a polarizing role was now being recognized as a bold and strategic move. Directors, too, started looking at her differently. She had proven she could carry a psychological thriller, hold attention in emotionally charged scenes, and leave an audience uncomfortable in all the right ways. Being typecast can sometimes trap an actor, but Erika managed to turn the stereotype of the bad girl into a platform. It allowed her to reach roles that demanded more complexity. It opened doors in both film and television where psychological depth was required. She wasn't boxed in, she had broken the mold entirely. It's remarkable to think that what once felt like a risk had, in hindsight, been a carefully considered turning point. She wasn't running from the shadow of Madison Bell anymore. In fact, she was using it to chase bigger stories, harder roles, and new challenges. Then, she later revealed surprising behind-the-scenes details that no one saw coming. Secrets that added a whole new layer to her intense performance. How Swimfan changed TV casting for Erika Christensen. While the film drew mixed reviews, Erika's performance carved a sharp imprint in the minds of casting directors. That iconic performance, equal parts seductive and unhinged, ultimately became both a blessing and a challenge for her career in television. In the years that followed, Erika moved away from the silver screen and toward the world of television, eventually thriving in acclaimed series like Parenthood, Lie to Me, and 6 Degrees. But her transition wasn't as simple as it seemed. Many casting professionals had trouble seeing her as anything but the possessive, vengeful girl from Swimfan. The film's impact created a casting echo that lingered for years. Producers saw her as best suited for roles that involved psychological manipulation or emotional instability. This unspoken typecasting narrowed her early television opportunities as directors assumed she would bring that same wild intensity to every character. Erika, however, was determined not to be trapped in a single-screen persona. Behind the scenes, she made a conscious effort to reshape her career. She turned down several offers that, while lucrative, echoed the Swimfan archetype. These included roles in crime procedurals or thrillers where the female character spiraled out of control or played the emotional manipulator. Erika recognized the long-term dangers of reinforcing a one-note image and deliberately pivoted toward roles that emphasized vulnerability, warmth, and realism. This strategic decision led her to characters like Julia Braverman Graham in Parenthood, a working mom navigating marriage, motherhood, and professional ambition. It was a complete departure from her previous on-screen persona. The character had emotional depth, but was grounded, rational, and human. Erika's performance was widely praised for its subtlety and relatability, finally allowing critics and audiences to see her range beyond the shadows of Swimfan. Similarly, her role in Lie to Me allowed her to play a confident, skilled character rooted in logic, not obsession. It wasn't just about escaping Madison Bell, it was about reclaiming her artistry on her own terms. By rejecting roles that played off her earlier image, Erika demonstrated that an actor can grow beyond their most famous performance. She proved that it's possible to escape typecasting, but only with sharp self-awareness and careful role selection. This transformation also opened doors to more mature, nuanced projects. Casting directors began to see Erika as a versatile actress, one who could adapt to any setting: family drama, political thrillers, or crime series. Her confidence in taking ownership of her career direction made her not just an actress, but a quiet force in shaping how young women navigate Hollywood post-breakout roles. In the early 2000s, Hollywood had a habit of offering young women a narrow selection of breakout roles: the temptress, the troubled girl, or the tragic beauty. These characters were often written through the lens of male fantasy or designed to be emotionally extreme for dramatic effect. For young actresses, playing these roles wasn't always about artistic choice. It was often about necessity. If they wanted the spotlight, they had to accept parts that were intensely sexualized or psychologically unstable. Erika's decision to pursue Swimfan was not just bold, it reflected the reality of an industry where agency was often constrained. She saw the complexity of Madison Bell as a challenge, but it also meant stepping into a role that carried heavy baggage. In doing so, she participated in a system that rewarded young women for going there emotionally, even at personal cost. The difference, however, was Erika's ownership of that choice. She actively pushed to play Madison, even turning down safer, more conventional roles. Her agency in that moment was powerful, even as the role itself played into Hollywood's ongoing tropes. It's worth questioning how a male actor would have been treated had he starred in a similar obsessed role. History shows that male actors playing intense or deranged characters, think American Psycho's Christian Bale or Nightcrawler's Jake Gyllenhaal, are often praised for their commitment and bravery. Their performances are celebrated as transformative. But for women, these same roles often lead to typecasting, judgment, or questions about their real personalities. Erika experienced this firsthand. The lingering association with Madison Bell didn't automatically earn her critical acclaim. It made people wary. It boxed her into a type and forced her to fight harder for roles that allowed her to evolve. She didn't just play Madison, she had to live with her shadow. What are your thoughts on Swimfan and Erika Christensen's performance? Share your thoughts in the comments. We'd love to hear from you.